Good morning, everybody. I appreciate your presence here today. I welcome you. I feel extremely blessed to be able to come here on Sunday mornings and share with you spiritual insights that have a positive effect on our lives. Your life is like a lazy river. It just goes on its course with all of its curves and all of its currents, moving on down to wherever it's headed. And we have two choices. We can either go with the flow, stay on top of the water, or we can resist it and try to go against the flow. No matter what we do, every situation and circumstance that we have in our lives is the result of one thing, and that is how we relate to what's going on around us. I was reading the paper with great interest the last couple of weeks about the Carnival cruise ship that got stranded out in the ocean. Anybody else read about that? It's like 4,000 people signed up for this cruise, which pretty much guaranteed them that they could have whatever they wanted. And then in the midst of the cruise, they didn't get anything they wanted. Wouldn't that be an interesting study in human nature, to be in that boat and just observe the people? They were interviewing some of them on the radio, and some were outraged, some were talking about lawsuits, some were talking about on the ship, violence broke out because people were fighting about basically nothing. And then there was one guy, and when asked what his experience was, he said, "I was just so happy." And the interviewer said, "Happy? What were you happy about?" He said, "I was happy the ship wasn't sinking." He had to be a unity person. But isn't that the truth? I mean, we have problems in our lives, and we have challenges in our lives, and we have setbacks and all these things going on, but there is always an abundance of blessings, and things always could be worse. And that guy reminded me of my cousin Ozzy, because when I have when I have a problem that I'm dealing with, or a challenge that I can't seem to move through, or I just met with a setback of some sort, I'll call Ozzy up because he's a good listener. He doesn't judge me. He doesn't offer direction. He doesn't try to fix the situation. He just listens. And at the end of my whining, and there's a pause, and he says, "Count your blessings. Things could always be worse." That's his life motto. No matter what, count your blessings. Things could always be worse. A couple of weeks ago, Peter Svenquist came into Lars's Tavern. This is in Nunda, South Dakota, where Ozzy lives. And he sat down at the bar next to Ozzy, and he was down and out, half mad, half sad. And Peter had just gotten married about a month earlier to Elle Norberg, and they got a little farmhouse just outside Nunda, and they settled into this little 3-room house, and everything was fine until one day there was a knock on the door. Peter opened it, and there was Elle's father, and Elle's mother, and Elle's brother with suitcases in their hands. It seems like Elle's father had lost his job. The bank foreclosed on his house. They didn't have any money. They didn't have any place to go, so they decided to move in with Peter and Elle. So Peter was groaning about this at the bar, and Cousin Ozzy listened patiently, and he said, "I can fix your problem, but you have to do exactly as I say." Peter said, yes, I'll do anything. Right now, my life is horrible. We're bumping into each other. Everybody is angry. There's not enough room in the house. Elle and her mother are sleeping in the only bed. The father's taking the couch. I'm on the floor with the brother. Tell me how to fix this, and I will do exactly what you say. So Ozzy says, "How many farm animals do you have?" He says, "Well, I got a cow, a goat, 2 chickens, and a pig." Cousin Ozzy says, "Okay, I want you to go home and I want you to take those farm animals into the house and you live with them." And Peter did exactly that. Now Ozzy said, "Then you come back to me in 7 days." 7 days passed. Peter came back to Lars's Tavern. He walked in and he was furious. He went straight to Ozzy and he wanted to strangle him. He says, "You idiot, what kind of advice did you give me? My life is worse than ever. It's a living hell. I'd rather be dead. The cow is knocking everything over. The goat is eating the stuffing out of the furniture. The chickens cluck all the time. And the stench of the pig is so bad that I can hardly stand it. Everybody's angry." Cousin Ozzy listened patiently. He said, "Okay, go home, take the farm animals out of the house, come back in 7 days." Peter came back in 7 days and he says, "You're a genius. My life is so good. With all the animals out of the house, everybody is so much happier. We're getting along and we have no problems at all. Thank you, thank you, thank you." And that is the first lesson of the day, and it comes from Cousin Ozzy. Count your blessings because things could always be worse. The second lesson today is on the theme song, which is Revolution. And that was a tough topic to get into, because in Unity we don't really propose that we go against anything. We don't revolt against anything, but rather we move towards that which we want, and we just leave that which we don't want alone, and eventually it just disintegrates, it goes away. Focus on the positive, ignore the negative. And what we are for strengthens us, what we are against weakens us. But we can revolt against this line that we have, each and every one of us individually, which is called a set point. And a set point is the overall degree of happiness that you experience in your life. And it's at many different levels for different people. We have spikes of great joy and happiness, and we have spikes downward of sadness, anger, resentment, or whatever, but we always return to the set point that we have set, and the set point is a happiness that we are willing to settle for, each and every one of us individually. It's a happiness that we believe we have the capacity to achieve. It's a happiness that we believe life has to offer, but it is an arbitrary set point that we've made up in our mind. It's what we have agreed to settle for. And so the question is, are we settling for less? Could we be happier? And the answer is yes. They did a study on paraplegics, and they discovered that 6 months after a person had been in a tragic accident that had left them severely disabled, the primary emotions were fear, anger, and resentment. But a year after the accident had happened, the person had returned to the same level of happiness that they were at before, the same set point they had established for themselves. In other words, we as human beings have adaptability, and we also have a resilience, and we can go through difficult problems and challenges and all sorts of other things, but we're going to rise back up to the level of happiness that we demand from life. At the same time they did that, they also did research on lottery winners. And they discovered that when people won the lottery, for the first 6 months, they were exhilarated. They were happy, joyful, almost in a state of ecstasy. But after a year, those people, after winning millions and millions of dollars, had returned to the same level of happiness that they were at before they won the lottery. Now, this study tells us two things. First of all, that the conditions of our lives definitely affect our happiness. If we're facing a bad time or problem of some sort, it's very difficult to chin up and go through it with a smile on your face. It also tells us that we are resilient, but we don't have complete confidence or faith in our resiliency. When we're facing a difficult time, we think this is it forever. I'm always going to be in this down and out mood. But our human nature allows us to move back to a state that's comfortable. It also tells us that we depend a lot on our happiness to be given to us by something out there, such as the lottery winners. We think, if only I can get, I will be happy. We think, if only I can go someplace, I'll be happy. If only I was something different, I would be happy. But we know that when we put our happiness into something out there, that it is temporary, it is diminishing, and eventually it wears off and we go back to the same point we were. So we have a tendency to chase happiness. We think if we get it someplace out there that we're going to be happy at last. But it's always short-lived, whether the problems, challenges, and setbacks take us down or whether great rewards and benefits rise us up, we always return to the same set point that we've determined we're willing to settle for. So the objective for us on the spiritual path is not to necessarily go out there and try to find ways to get happy or to resist and struggle with those things that don't make us happy, but to raise that set point so that the general overall happiness of our life is greater than it has ever been. And each and every one of us can do that.